I want you to imagine you're sitting in an audience of 500 women. Maybe it's a conference, maybe it's a church gathering, maybe it's a corporate event. And I walk on stage and I ask one question. When did you stop expecting joy? Watch what happens. The room goes completely silent. Women start looking down. Some start crying because nobody has ever given them permission to admit they stop expecting their own lives to feel good. And here's the thing. These aren't miserable women. These are successful women, accomplished women, women who did everything right, raised good kids, built careers, kept marriages together, or survived divorce, showed up for aging parents, did all things right. But somewhere along the way, they stopped expecting joy for themselves. They stopped believing their own lives could feel good again. I know this because I lived it. When my youngest daughter left for college, I stood in my kitchen and I had this moment I'll never forget. The house was quiet, really quiet. And I realized I had no idea who I was when I wasn't actively mothering someone. For 20 plus years, my identity was built around being needed. Constantly, someone always needed me to make a decision, solve a problem, show up somewhere, remember something. And I was good at it. I loved it. Being needed gave me purpose. But then they grew up, which was the goal, right? That's what we were supposed to do as mothers. We launched them, help them become independent, capable adults who don't need us anymore. Except nobody tells you what happens to you when you succeeded at that. You stand in your kitchen and think, wait, who am I now? And this is where most content about emptiness stops. It tells you you'll be sad for a while. It gives you tips for staying busy. Right again. It says you'll adjust. You'll be fine. Right. But I wasn't fine. I was lost. And what I discovered is that loss isn't the whole story. Sadness isn't the whole story. There's something deeper happening that nobody's addressing. Women are walking around with permission deficit. We spent decades giving ourselves permission to sacrifice, to show up, to be needed, but we never gave ourselves permission to feel everything that comes after. So today, I'm giving you 3 permissions, not as nice ideas, as necessities. Because until you give yourself permission, you stay stuck in that kitchen wondering who you are. Permission number 1, you have permission to grieve what you've lost. Even when everyone says you should be happy, your kids growing up is success. It's the goal. It's what you worked for. And it's also a loss. Both things are true. You can miss who they were when they were little and celebrate who they've become. You can be proud they're independent and grieve that they don't need you the same way anymore. You can love the freedom among the purpose you had when they needed you constantly. Grief doesn't mean you failed. Grief means you love deeply enough that letting go actually cost you something. But here's what we need to do instead. We perform happiness. We say, I'm so proud, I'm so happy for them, which is true. But we don't let ourselves say, and I'm also grieving. And I don't know who I am without them here. Because we think grief means we're not happy for them, or that we're ungrateful, or that we did something wrong. So we push it down. And that grief turns into depression, anxiety, or this vague sense that something is wrong with us. You're not broken, you're grieving. And grief needs to be felt, not fixed. Permission number 2, you have permission not to know who you are right now. The identity crisis is normal. It's not a sign you did something wrong. It's not weakness. It's transition. Listen, you spent 20 plus years being needed constantly. Your identity was built around active mothering. You were the one who remembered everything, scheduled everything, showed up for everything. That was real. That was important work. And now that work has changed. Your kids are adult. They don't need you to manage their lives anymore, which means the identity you build around that role doesn't fit the same way. Confusion doesn't mean failure. It means you're in between identities. The old one doesn't fit anymore and the new one isn't clear yet. That in-between space, that's terrifying because we're taught to always know who we are, what we want, where we're going, especially as women, especially as mothers. But transition requires not knowing for a while. They require sitting in discomfort of I'm not who I was and I don't know who I am becoming yet. So stop beating yourself up for not having it figured out. You're not supposed to have it figured out yet. You're in transition, and transition takes time. Permission number 3, you have permission to want something for yourself again. This is the one that breaks women open when I say it from stage, because here's what happened. For 20 years, you pushed down what you wanted. You had to. The kids needed things. Partners needed things. Jobs needed things. Aging parents needed things. There was no space for what do I want? And after 20 years of pushing down your own desires, you forgot you're allowed to have them. So you stopped asking. You stopped dreaming. You stopped expecting joy. And now, even when you have space and time and freedom, you don't know what you want anymore. You feel guilty for wanting anything. You think they need me less now. Shouldn't I just be grateful? Shouldn't I just be happy with what I have? No, you are allowed to want something. You are allowed to desire something for yourself. You are allowed to expect your life to feel good again. Wanting isn't selfish. It's human. And after 20 years of putting everyone else's first, it's necessary. But we've been conditioned to believe that mothers who want things for themselves are selfish. That good women sacrifice. That at 50, 60, we should just be grateful, not ambitious, not hungry for more. That is a lie. And it's a lie that keeps women small. So here's what changes when we give women these 3 permissions. They stop pretending. They stop performing happiness when they're actually grieving. They stop beating themselves up for not having it all figured out. They stop feeling guilty for wanting something for themselves. And when they stop pretending, they start healing. When they stop performing, they start being honest about where they actually are. And when they start being honest, they can start building the next chapter they actually want. Not the one they think they're supposed to want, the one they actually want. This is what I do when I speak to audiences. I give permission. Permission to feel everything. Permission to not know. Permission to want. Because permission changes everything. It's the difference between staying stuck in confusion and starting to build what comes next. And that transformation, that's what audiences need to see. That's what changes how women see themselves. If your organization needs a speaker who gives women permission to stop performing and start living, let's talk. Because the women in your audience are waiting for someone to say it out loud what they've been thinking in silence. Link is in the description.